Hello, and welcome to Food Safety for Wash Pack Facilities, a training series brought to you by the CCE Cornell Vegetable Program. Implementing food safety practices in wash pack facilities is critical for ensuring that foodborne pathogens are not introduced or spread as produce is sorted, graded, washed, and packed. This is Caitlin Tucker, Program Assistant for the Cornell Vegetable Program. Throughout this series, I will walk you through principles of food safety, the ideal wash pack facility, post-harvest water management, cleaning and sanitizing, and tips for cleaning common wash pack equipment. Because food safety is a company-wide responsibility, we invite all farm employees to participate in this training. Let's begin. Part 1, Principles of Food Safety. Objectives for Part 1 include: identify the 3 types of pathogens that can contaminate produce. Identify sources and routes of contamination from the field to the wash pack line. Highlight everyday health and hygiene practices that can reduce food safety risks. Review the process of proper hand washing. Review signs and symptoms of illnesses, and outline proper procedure for handling injuries. Food safety practices are critical for ensuring that produce is safe for consumers, but it can be challenging to implement. Why is that? For starters, fresh fruits and vegetables are often eaten raw. That means there is no kill step, such as cooking or canning or other processing, that would otherwise kill foodborne pathogens. Contamination is also hard to remove once present. Many fruits and vegetables naturally have rough surfaces, crinkled leaves, stem scars, fruit scars, netted skins, or other natural openings. These small spaces can easily harbor pathogens. Certain pathogens can multiply rapidly on produce surfaces if conditions are right. Bacteria, for example, require a food source, moisture, and appropriate temperature to multiply. If those conditions are present, bacteria can multiply once every 20 minutes. Contamination is usually random in occurrence and in number. This is due in part because there are many possible routes of contamination on the farm. Because of this, farms should have food safety policies in place throughout the farm, especially in wash pack areas. The wash pack facility is a bottleneck. All produce on the farm may need to go through the facility to be sorted, graded, washed, and packed. Even the smallest amount of contamination could explode into a much bigger contamination event under the right conditions. So, how can people get sick from eating produce? Most foodborne illnesses are caused by 3 types of germs, or pathogens, that can be spread by feces, saliva, or mucus. The 3 pathogens are called bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Let's review each contaminant. Number 1, bacteria. Most foodborne illnesses are caused by bacteria. They can cause vomiting, diarrhea, cramps, fever, nausea, etc. They are often spread by poor hygiene, like lack of hand washing or coughing and sneezing. Some bacteria that cause people to get sick include Shigella, E. coli 0157H7, Salmonella, and Listeria. Listeria is especially concerning for pregnant people. The disease called listeriosis can cause pregnant people to miscarry, deliver their babies early, or have low birth weight. Number 2, viruses. Viruses can cause projectile vomiting, diarrhea, cramps, muscle aches, and so on. Foodborne viruses can only live within a host, like a human or an animal. Good health and hygiene practices can help prevent the spread. Norovirus and hepatitis A are some of the most common viruses that cause foodborne illness. Number 3, parasites. Parasites like Toxoplasma gondii or Giardia lamblia can cause diarrhea, cramping, muscle pain, weight loss, or malnutrition. They can be spread by contaminated water, soil, feces, or through person-to-person contact. poor health and hygiene can cause produce to become contaminated with parasites. Now that we know how people get sick from eating produce, let's talk about the 5 ways in which produce can become contaminated. The 5 routes of contamination are 1. People, 2. Animals, 3. Water, 4. Soil amendments, and 5. Equipment, tools, surfaces, or buildings. How can workers contaminate produce? If you do not properly wash your hands after eating, drinking, smoking, using the restroom, or after working with animals or soil amendments. If you have been injured and blood or other bodily fluids gets onto the produce. If you work while you are sick. If you wear dirty clothes or boots to the farm, or if your boots or clothes get contaminated with manure while working on the farm. If you do not properly use the restroom by throwing away toilet paper into the toilet, or if you do not wash your hands with soap and water. Or if you harvest produce with contaminated tools. How can animals contaminate produce? Domesticated animals like cats, dogs, livestock, or other pets can contaminate produce if they are allowed in areas where crops are grown, harvested, washed, packed, or stored. In wash-pack facilities, we are especially concerned about birds, mice, rats, cats, and dogs. Wild animals can also contaminate produce, and they are much harder to control. If animals poop in fields, eat crops, root, or trample on crops, they can spread contamination. If these crops are then harvested, they can introduce contamination into the wash-pack line. Animals, both domesticated and wild, can contaminate the water sources that may be used to irrigate crops. And finally, if manure is not properly stored, it could run off into the field during rain events or flooding. Or, animals could get into the manure and spread it across the farm. How can water contaminate produce? Water can easily carry and spread pathogens. Water can become contaminated from animals, especially if they get into creeks, ponds, streams, or other bodies of water that are used for irrigation. Small animals can contaminate irrigation hoses if they're able to get into them during the off-season. If there are heavy rains or flooding, contamination can be spread easily to a large area. And finally, water used in washing or cooling produce can introduce contamination, especially if the source of the water is not adequate for use on fruits and vegetables, if sanitizers are not used to kill pathogens, or if water variables that impact sanitizer efficacy are not frequently monitored. How can soil amendments contaminate produce? All manures can carry foodborne pathogens. If you apply manure too close to harvest, crops can become contaminated. If the manure is not completely treated, there is a chance foodborne pathogens may still be alive. If manure is improperly stored, animals could get into it, or it could spread from water runoff. If it is spread on a windy day, there is a chance particles can blow onto areas of the field or garden that you did not intend. And finally, cross-contamination can happen if you use tools or equipment to handle manure or soil amendments and they are not cleaned and sanitized before using with produce. How can equipment, tools, surfaces, or buildings contaminate produce? If equipment, tools, food contact surfaces, or buildings are not regularly cleaned and sanitized, and they are used for crop production, they can harbor foodborne pathogens. And remember, anything can be a food contact surface if it comes into contact with food. This includes vehicles that are used for transporting produce, harvest tools, washing and packing equipment, any and all harvest bins, green spinners, scales, conveyor belts, or tables. Tall grass outside of buildings can harbor pests like mice or rats. Birds and rodents can enter into pack houses. Puddles of water in packing areas can harbor foodborne pathogens like listeria. And finally, trash and/or cull bins that are not routinely emptied can attract rodents, insects, and other animals. Now let's discuss some everyday health and hygiene practices that can help to prevent contamination. In general, everyone on the farm should be expected to follow standards of personal health and hygiene. Follow farm policies for jewelry or glove wearing. Follow proper hand washing procedures. Notify their supervisor if they are ill. Refrain from eating, chewing gum, or using tobacco products while working with produce. And minimize contact with animals. Guidelines on clothing and footwear. Employees should wear clean clothes to work each day. They should also wear clean shoes or boots. If you work with animals and produce, consider having separate sets of footwear and clothing. This can help to prevent cross-contamination. If you are required to wear gloves, change them when they become torn or contaminated. If you wear reusable gloves, they should be cleaned often. Aprons, gloves, and other personal protective equipment, such as goggles, face masks, or respirators, should always be removed before using the toilet. They should be stored in a clean, designated area when they are not being used. Guidelines on jewelry. Many people wear watches, wedding rings, bracelets, or earrings, and in many work environments, these are not a concern. But on the farm, jewelry can easily trap soils as well as contaminants in the tiniest of spaces. Not only can jewelry innocently spread foodborne pathogens, but they can also be physical contaminants. For example, if the back of an earring were to fall off into a bag of lettuce. Jewelry can also pose a hazard to workers. Loose jewelry, like bracelets or necklaces, can get caught on machinery. So, if possible, you should avoid wearing unnecessary jewelry to the farm. If you must wear jewelry, such as your wedding ring, it should be covered with a glove when you are handling produce. Be aware that if you wear jewelry on your hands, it can cause tears in gloves or other garments. And finally, if jewelry is worn uncovered, employees should take extra care in washing around and underneath the jewelry. Guidelines on glove use. Always follow your farm's policy on glove wearing. Some farms may require their workers to wear gloves, where others may not. If you do wear gloves, inspect them prior to use to make sure they do not have holes, tears, or cracks in them. Furthermore, gloves should be clean before you use them to handle produce. Gloves should always be stored in a designated clean, dry environment when not in use. Single-use gloves should never be reused. And remember, always remove your gloves before taking breaks, using the restroom, or handling trash. You should always wash your hands prior to wearing your gloves. Proper hand washing is very important. It can prevent you from catching or spreading foodborne pathogens, as well as other germs like the flu or coronavirus. Hand washing is also effective at removing harmful pesticide residues. Let's review the proper way to wash your hands. Step 1. Wet hands with water. The water can be hot or cold. Step 2. Apply soap and lather. Wash the front and backs of hands, in between your fingers and underneath your nails. Rub your hands together for at least 20 seconds. Step 3. Rinse hands thoroughly with clean water. Step 4. Dry with a paper towel. Step 5. Turn off the faucet with the used towel. Step 6. Throw the paper towel in a trash can. What about hand sanitizers? Hand sanitizers are absolutely not a substitute for hand washing. Why is that? Hand sanitizers do not get rid of 100% of germs. Your hands need to be cleaned with soap and water before the sanitizer can work. If your hands are dirty or greasy, the hand sanitizer may not be effective. Hand sanitizers might not remove pesticides or other harmful chemicals. When should hands be washed? Before starting or returning to work. Before putting on gloves. Before and after eating or smoking. After using the toilet. After touching animals or animal waste. Or any other time hands may become dirty or contaminated. For example, after you take out the trash, empty coal bins, before and after you treat a cut or wound, or after blowing your nose. Let's review the proper use of toilets. It is very important that urination and defecation happens in the toilet, not in the field or anywhere else. Toilet paper should always be thrown away in the toilet and not in the trash can or on the floor. And remember, always wash your hands after using the toilet. What should you do if you are ill? You should absolutely not work with produce if you are sick. You can contaminate produce through coughing, sneezing, or by not washing your hands after using the restroom. Symptoms of illness can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, jaundice, abdominal cramps, or sore throat. It is important that employees be aware of how they are feeling. If you suspect you are sick, ask your supervisor if there is another task you can work on that does not involve contact with produce. What should you do if you are injured? Follow your farm's standard operating procedure for injuries. If the injury is severe, call 911 or have someone else call 911. If the injury is minor, locate your farm's first aid kit. For minor injuries, clean and bandage all wounds. If the wound is on the hand, a glove should be worn. This will help prevent blood, bodily fluids, or the bandage from contaminating produce while you continue working. This will also help protect you. An open wound is more exposed to harsh chemicals like sanitizers, fertilizers, or pesticides. Your wound will be protected if it is bandaged and gloved. Throw away produce that may be contaminated from blood or bodily fluids. Clean and sanitize any tools, equipment, or other items that come into contact with blood or bodily fluids. And finally, all injuries should be reported to the supervisor and recorded in the injury log. It is important to have this record in case produce was contaminated and a produce recall needs to happen. What about drinking water in break areas? You should only drink potable water from the designated water source. Only use single cups. Do not share cups with other people. Do not bring glass containers to drink from. Use plastic or metal containers. Glass containers can break and shatter and contaminate produce or cause physical harm. Only refill water containers from a designated water source. Do not eat, chew gum, or use tobacco products while harvesting, washing, sorting, or packing produce. These activities should only happen in your farm's designated break area. Summary: bacteria, viruses, and parasites can cause foodborne illness. Workers, animals, soil amendments, water, tools, equipment, and buildings can all be sources or routes of contamination on the farm. Preventing contamination is the best defense. Follow health and hygiene practices. Hand washing can go a long way to stop the spread of contamination. And workers who are ill or injured can also spread contamination. They should know the signs and symptoms of illnesses and should know what to do when they are injured. Thank you for watching Part 1, Principles of Food Safety for Wash Pack Facilities. If you have any questions or would like help identifying resources, do not hesitate to reach out. You can reach Extension Specialist Robert Haddad via email at rgh26@cornell.edu or by phone at 585-739-4065. You can reach Program Assistant Caitlin Tucker at cv275@cornell.edu or by phone at 573-544-4783. If you would like to learn more about the Cornell Vegetable Program, visit cvp.cce.cornell.edu. Up next, Part 2, the ideal wash pack facility.